and all is still go as we monitor our status for it. Good luck and Godspeed.
Have you ever had a premonition, a feeling that something dreadful was about to happen?
No, Mother, I have not been drinking.
Do you happen to have a pair of birds that are just friendly?
We all go a little mad sometimes.
I have to go back into the past once more, just once more.
This is Hitchpod, a podcast counting down the 20 best movies of the wonderful 20th century director Alfred Hitchcock. I'm Kat Jones and with me is Dan Liebke, and in this episode we're comparing the fourth best Hitchcock movie, Vertigo, with the movie that the Oscars deemed to be the best one from a nearby year, Bridge on the River Kwai. Now, just remind me, Dan, why we are not comparing Vertigo with the movie that beat it for the Oscar in 1957? 1959?
Yeah. The movie that did beat it was Gigi, that beat it to the best picture, and apparently Gigi hasn't aged particularly well. And we had to deal with Tom Jones as our Oscar winner last time, and that pretty much broke us from dealing with any movie that makes the list of worst Oscar winners of all time. So,
I think we're officially done with all the Oscar winners from every year Hitchcock didn't win. It was bad enough that Hitchcock didn't win, and then when you see the movie that beat Hitchcock, it just rubs absolute salt in a massive wound.
Yes.
And anyway, Gigi has bad reviews. We are not going there.
Yes. So instead we're going to the year before, the Bridge on the River Kwai. But before we get there, we'll give you our usual cryptic clue for the third best Hitchcock film, which will be the next movie we'll be watching. So the cryptic style clue for the third best movie, and you could try and work this out before the end of the episode. You probably have a vague idea of what might be candidates out there. But we'll go with Shh, Newborn Tot. Try dealing with this film. 529. And the spelling of shh is SHH, just for the record. So think about that. Shh, Newborn Tot. Try dealing with this film. And
now we shall give some sort of background info about this movie.
Yeah, so this is The Bridge on the River Kwai. It was from 1958. It has an IMDb rating of 8.1 out of 10, which makes it the 172nd best movie in the IMDb database. Has a Rotten Tomatoes score of 96% and a Metacritic score of 88%, which translates to universal acclaim. So
these are pretty high scores.
These are very high scores. We did have our good friend Bosley Crowther. He had a review.
I'm guessing he loved it.
He did love it.
Yeah.
So I'll just give a paragraph from Bosley's review. The mounting of drama upon drama in Mr. Spiegel's magnificent colour film, which opened last night at the Palace for an extended 2-a-day run, makes it more than a towering entertainment of rich variety and revelation of the ways of men. It makes it one of the niftiest bargains to be had on the screen this holiday. So value for money there.
You got a lot of film for your money.
Yep.
A lot of hours.
Since both of the issues in this picture, the conflict of wills between two men and the subsequent contest to accomplish the destruction of the prisoner-built bridge are loaded with mortal tension that holds the viewer in sweating suspense, it seems a shame that we have to give an inkling of the outcome of either one. And then he goes on to spoil the first half.
Oh my God, really?
Yes.
Fantastic.
Yes. So good stuff there from Bosley. And the Academy agreed. It gave it 7 Oscars, Best Picture, Best Director, Best Actor, Best Adapted Screenplay, Best Cinematography, Best Editing, and there was also a Best Supporting Actor nomination.
Huh.
So you can find this on Amazon Prime in the UK, but only just, I think. I think they're just about to take it off, so hurry up if you want to watch it in the UK. Pretty much everywhere else you have to either track down a DVD or a Blu-ray or rent it. And who does it star?
It stars Alec Guinness, and a lot of people would know him from recent movies he has done in the modern era.
Yes, he's Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Yeah. It stars William Holden, who plays Shears.
Yes.
And he was also in Sunset Boulevard and Network, Best Picture nominees, so he often appeared. Alec Guinness, of course, plays Colonel Nicholson. Jack Hawkins played Major Warden. He was also in Ben-Hur and Zulu. And Sasui Hayakawa played Colonel Saito.
Yes. And the synopsis of this one is that British POWs are forced to build a railway bridge across the River Kwai for their Japanese captors in occupied Burma, not knowing that the Allied forces are planning a daring commando raid through the jungle to destroy it.
And I went to I went to this part of the world in Thailand, near where this, the Burma Railway, the Death Railway was, and I actually went to the bridge on the River Kwai, and it only ever came back to me while we were watching the movie. It was like, I've been there. Right. I actually saw that. That was a tourist attraction. That was a day tour we went on.
That's very cool.
So, but that was decades ago.
Yes.
So it all came rushing back as I watched this movie, which is an added little bonus.
Yes. And the movie is based on the book The Bridge Over the River Kwai by Pierre Boulez, and the change of preposition is very confusing. I think everybody calls it The Bridge Over the River Kwai, Bridge on the River Kwai. People change the name of it all the time. No one can agree what it was called.
I prefer on. I think the movie made the right call to change it. The Bridge on the River Kwai has it's just got a better flow about it, a better rhythm of the title.
Yeah, yeah. It was adapted for the film, so there were a couple of screenwriters put in charge of this. First one was Carl Foreman. Mm-hmm. He'd done High Noon and would go on to do The Guns of Navarone. He was eventually booted off the job. He was replaced by Michael Wilson, who would go on to write Lawrence of Arabia and Planet of the Apes. So they all
had a hand in it. They're all pretty skilled, and it does shine through. It was a good screenplay.
Yes, but they had to write on the project in secret because they were blacklisted at the time. So this is the era of blacklisting, and that meant because it did win Best Adapted Screenplay, and that was given to the novel writer Pierre Boulez. So he got it. Got it despite the fact he had nothing to do with the screenplay. But Foreman and Wilson would eventually get the award posthumously, which I'm sure was a great relief for them to get that after they died.
And of course, the director was David Lean. He was a big gun director of the era. He made his name in Charles Dickens' adaptations, Great Expectations and Oliver Twist. That was in the 1940s. And then he went on to do Lawrence of Arabia later, Dr. Zhivago later, and had 7 Best Director nominations in total. And 2 wins.
Yep. So for this one and Lawrence of Arabia.
Yeah.
And it is, of course, primarily a war movie. It's tagged as adventure/drama/war. It's mostly war.
I actually like this genre. I like this genre in movies. I like this genre in books. I prefer a few more women in it, but I'm not, I don't mind it when it's just a traditional war movie. I quite like these.
War's not usually my favourite genre. This is one of my preferred war movies. It did have a tagline.
It might be your favourite war movie of all time.
Might be. The tagline was, "It spans a whole new world of entertainment." So a bit of wordplay there.
Bit of a bridge wordplay.
Yes. So good stuff.
I also like the idea that Bridge on the River Kwai might have been, spoiler, the ending of the bridge when it actually dropped onto the River Kwai, as opposed to being over it, which it was at the start.
Yes. All right, so we're going to recap the movie now. We'll spoil it. So if you haven't seen it, if you're in the UK and want to quickly get a glimpse of it on Amazon Prime before it goes away, or want to watch it in any other way in any other country, go ahead and do that now, because we're about to do the plot. So it is, of course, World War II for this movie, and we start with some prisoners of war, and they're led by Colonel Nicholson, that's Alec Guinness, and they're arriving at a prison camp in Thailand, and they whistle on their way in. They're very cheery prisoners of war, very much stiff upper lipping the situation, and they're very certain that their time as POWs will be very dignified and proper and be wonderful for them.
And this bit of war history, of course, this is after Japan have entered the Second World War. They're fighting in the Pacific. They've taken Singapore. They've invaded a whole lot of countries, including trying to get a railway from Singapore up through Thailand to make troops move north. And so at that time there were Australians and there were English who were stationed in Singapore and in other places, and there were Americans as well. So
my great uncle was a prisoner of war in these camps. So
so you ended up with all of these different people and a bit of a clash of cultures of those Allied troops. And this shone through the movie so beautifully. There were Americans and mostly English. Maybe the odd Australian, the accents were not necessarily completely clear. I like to think the doctor was an Australian.
Yeah, I'm not sure he was, but I think the guy who got shot was an Australian, or one of the men trying to escape. But we'll get to him, because we do learn that there is a member of the POW camp who's been there before these English people show up. This is US Navy Commander Shears. This is William Holden. And he warns Nicholson that he should maybe lower his expectations as to what might happen because the camp is a bit of a hellhole and pretty much everybody there ends up dead. The first time we meet him, he's just finished burying some poor dude. So yeah.
And these people are dying of illness rather than acute injury because there's a lot of terrible illnesses that go around and go through the camp.
Yes. So Shears says there's no civilization here, and Nicholson's response is, what a perfect opportunity to introduce it.
So we learn the reason why the camp's so awful when we meet the commandant. That's Colonel Saito Sasui Hayakawa, who tells Nicholson everyone's going to be working on a bridge that has to be built by a certain date. And Nicholson says, hang on a minute, wait just a second, in his British accent. Wait just a second, old bean. And he starts citing the Geneva Convention at him, which states that officers don't have to do manual labour.
Yeah, so he's got the Geneva Convention in his pocket and whips it out and starts look here, like chapter 3, law 25.
And of course Saito rips it up.
It's
a good moment.
Yeah, so this kind of degenerates into this lengthy battle of wills. Saito at first threatens to shoot the officers. He's just not going to have it. But he changes his mind because there is a doctor about, as you mentioned, and the doctor says, there'll be too many witnesses. You can't do this. So instead, the officers are all locked up in some kind of punishment box under the heat and the sun. And every now and then, Saito lets Nicholson out to try and compromise with him. But Nicholson is very, very stubborn. He just says, nope, not gonna make my officers work. I'll sit in this thing until I die if I have to.
So eventually, with a looming deadline for the bridge and the soldiers not doing a particularly great job at it, in fact, they're sabotaging it every moment, Saito finally agrees to let the officers not do any work and just supervise the construction. So he gives in. This results in much cheering and celebration. God knows why. It just sort of perpetuates the myth that the foot soldiers were inspired by their non-working officers. Yeah. And, I'm not sure if that would have been
But they're very excited. It's just like high fives everywhere. So, yes, you did it. Good work, Nicholson.
Exactly.
Yes. But anyway, while that entire battle of wills went on between Nicholson and Saito, Shears and a couple of others escaped. Most of them died in the attempt, or the two others died in the attempt. Shears got winged, I think. I think he copped a bullet somewhere, but he managed to survive and found his way to Thai village and then eventually to Ceylon, which is now known as Sri Lanka.
So in Ceylon, that was where they had their sort of more relaxed camp where they were just having a bit of R&R.
Yeah, they were just chilling over there.
Yeah, there was no war happening there.
No war on the front. Yeah, they were just sitting there. Yes.
Anyway, back at the camp, Nicholson and his best officers instead have now taken over the construction of the bridge and are not letting the soldiers sabotage it at all. Nicholson's determined to build the best bloody bridge you've ever seen. He relocates it to a superior spot on the river and he maintains discipline, and then they race against the clock to get it built on time.
Yeah, so the doctor around about this point comes up to Nicholson and says, should we really be so enthusiastically helping the enemy to build this bridge? And Nicholson's response is essentially, well, it's the proper British thing to do. And then since the schedule is getting really tight, like they're running right up towards the deadline, he says, I've got an idea. Why don't we let the officers do some manual labour? And he says, let's get the men in sickbay out of bed to help finish it off too.
Even though that might kill them, and he doesn't seem to care.
Yeah.
Anyway, back in Ceylon, we meet Major Warden Jack Hawkins, and he's recruiting a bit of a sabotage mission of his own. He recruits Shears for this commando mission to go back and destroy the bridge. So there's a little bit of nonsense about Shears impersonating an officer. It doesn't make too much of a difference.
It doesn't really lead anywhere.
It doesn't really go anywhere. It does establish his character.
Yes.
As being really just a liar.
Yeah. But we kind of already knew he played by his own rules. So.
Yeah, played by his own rules. He's a loose cannon,
He's
right?
A
lone wolf.
Yes.
Anyway, Warden Shears and some enthusiastic young lad all parachute into Thailand and they head off to blow up the bridge. And this takes them a long time to get through the jungle.
Yep. And on the way there, they also learn somehow, like they've got informants nearby, maybe from that same Thai village that she is popped into. Wasn't entirely sure about that. Anyway, on the way there, they somehow learn that the opening of the bridge will also be accompanied by a train full of Japanese VIPs, and they'll be crossing over this new bridge in this train. So they say, well, if we time the blowing up of the bridge to be the same time as when the train goes over, we get double our money's worth.
And this is absolutely tense intense. There's nighttime action. They're sneaking the explosives onto the bridge. They're running a line because there's no remote detonation here. It's a wire. They're hiding the wire. They're running the wire to prepare to detonate it the next morning at just the right moment. Yeah. But then as the sun comes up, the lowering of the tide has meant that Nicholson, who's the last of the POWs remaining after all the others move on.
Yeah, they go whistling away. They
whistle away to the next potential bridge building. Anyway, he spots the fuse.
Yes, so he and Saito investigate and pretty much all hell breaks loose at that point. There's explosives and shooting and knife stabbing and just chaos. Nicholson is completely obsessed with his bridge now. He tries to stop his allies from blowing it up. Yeah. But maybe it's not entirely clear. It's left a little bit ambiguous whether he comes to his senses at the last moment or whether he's just happens to stumble onto the explosive and blow it up accidentally. Regardless, he kills Shears, Saito dies, Nicholson is fatally wounded, he falls onto the detonator, he blows up the train and the bridge. Everyone's pretty much dead, except for the doctor who's kind of just watching in the background and he's just muttering to himself, madness, madness. And that's the end of the movie.
So what did you think of this movie, Dan?
I loved it. I going into it, I knew of it, but only barely. I pretty much knew it was a war movie, that it had Alec Guinness in it and that there was whistling. So that was about it.
I'd seen it before, my dad insisting it was a classic that everyone should watch, and I think that's kind of true.
Yeah.
I shall also, claim this now for anyone listening. You should watch it. It really is a classic, and it's a fantastic movie.
Yeah, I particularly love the first hour of Saito and Nicholson butting heads, and I very much enjoyed how Nicholson eventually morphed to the point where he became exactly what he'd refused to be initially. I did not really see that coming. It's kind of very obvious in retrospect, but you kind of led to believe that
he turned into Saito. He turned into a monster as well.
Yeah, you kind of led to believe that he gets the better of that first hour of the movie. That his stubbornness and his British pluck wins the day, and then Saito played the long game and he gets exactly what he wanted. He gets the bridge built. And
Saito showed, I think it was when he showed his version of honour, which was, I'm going to have to commit suicide if the bridge isn't built on time. That's my honour. That honour was the only thing that moved Nicholson in the end. Nicholson caring more about his counterpart officer than the underclass of foot soldiers that were there. I loved how the movie made us sympathetic with Saito initially. It's like this officer, Nicholson, was so bad that you kind of started to sympathise with, Japanese enemy, which is just fantastic.
He was maddening. He was so frustrating. He was just like, all right, fine, we'll compromise here. And Nicholson's just going, not going to compromise in any way.
Not at all, not letting him save face, total cultural insensitivity.
Yep.
The doctor, as I said, was my favourite character because he was constantly playing the part of the watching audience. So he was questioning Nicholson at every turn, questioning the futility of war, constantly saving people's lives, only to find they got blown up in the next minute. So it was just, he was a great character.
Yeah, and I particularly enjoyed the kind of the futility of war aspect with people ostensibly on the same side of the war, both building and blowing up the bridge. So I very much enjoyed that. And I love the final scene. Like the final scene was really, I was, what's going to happen? I assumed the bridge would be blown up, but I was just like, still very, very nerve-wracking.
They had the youngest, recruit in the band of saboteurs standing there with the plunger of the old-fashioned dynamite while the cord was being followed by everyone else. And the suspense of that was really terrific.
And you had like the more experienced officers looking on going, blow it up, forget about the train, just blow it up. And he's still like, just wait a little longer. I can hear the train coming. It's just like, this is very nerve-wracking. Yes. And we were also discussing as we watched it how transgressive it must have felt because it was only a little over a decade since the war ended. So to kind of suggest that a British war hero, I mean, admittedly a fictionalised one, might have been so as fatally flawed as Nicholson was, that must have seemed very audacious.
Yeah, I mean, the
time.
people would have been watching this who were literally serving in that war, maybe even in that region. It was incredibly, provocative to really claim this, and everything during the war and just immediately post-war was so much about propaganda that these movies that were coming out about this time, there were a number of them that were a little bit more realistic.
Yeah.
I just love the the arc of every character being so carefully plotted out. It was such fantastic storytelling. They all had either a positive or a negative downfall, and either that was in the original book perhaps, or it may have been augmented in the movie, but either way, they did a great job of that.
Yep, it was very good. So we'll go on to how the movie was made in a second. Before we do that, just one little fact. So remember the scene when Sasori Haikawa hit Alec Guinness?
Yeah.
He actually did accidentally hit him hard enough to draw blood. So that was a bit of a mistake. And Guinness just went, oh, well, I'll carry on with this scene. And so that was no makeup blood on that particular one. That was real blood.
Incredible. So what else do we have from the director insights?
So let's go all the way back to the book. So Pierre Boulez, he was a POW in Thailand. So he created Colonel Nicholson as an amalgam of various French officers who he claims or remembers collaborating with their captors.
Yep.
So Sam Spiegel was the producer of the movie. He bought the rights to the book, and he considered a few different directors, including Howard Hawks, who we've covered. Howard Hawks did Bring Me Up Baby and His Girl Friday. I think
maybe not best to do a comedy director for this.
No, I think he did some other non-comedy movies, but it's funny that those two are his most famous. He also considered John Ford and Orson Welles, but eventually went with Lean.
And they would have been good calls as well. I can imagine an Orson Welles version of this as well.
Yeah. Orson Welles would have played Nicholson though, wouldn't he?
Yeah, he would have been in it, and he would have done a great job of that.
He would have been great.
That would have been fantastic. But you needed someone with a convincing British accent, right?
Yeah, Orson Welles can do a British accent. Yeah. So anyway, Lean and Foreman went to work on the script. They hated one another apparently, almost instantly, proper Hitch style. They're just fighting immediately. The producer Spiegel loved this. He had a theory that animosity made movies better, but it all became too much for Foreman, and he quit and was replaced by Wilson.
Yeah.
And then we had lots of arguments between Lean and Spiegel. So Spiegel really putting his theory of animosity making movies better to the test. He was trying to argue that, let's have some more action stuff like the Commando Raid, and Lean was mostly interested in the rivalry between the two leaders. So some of the suggestions that Spiegel wanted and that were even put into earlier scripts were an elephant stampede, an army ant attack, and a submarine battle. I don't even know how the submarines get there.
Well, in the little pond at the bottom of the waterfall, maybe.
Yeah. Anyway, Lean vetoed all of those.
Yeah, thank goodness.
Spiegel also did get his way on a couple of things. He changed Shears to be American so that American audiences would go see the movie.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Yeah.
And Columbia, who were the distributors of the movie, they hated that there was no romance. So Lean had to shoehorn in this tiny cameo from a woman while she is in salon.
Yeah, it's just like romance in inverted commas.
Yeah, it's like 2 minutes of the movie, just him saying, "Oh, you're very pretty," and she's going, "Oh, let's hook up later tonight," and that's it, basically.
That's completely it. There were some additional women from the town in Thailand that had a little bit of a romance with the youngest officer,
but barely.
It was these women did not talk.
No. Yes.
The role of Nicholson was offered to a few actors we've seen in Hitchcock movies: Charles Lawton, Laurence Olivier, Ray Milland, Spencer Tracy.
Yep.
So that was terrific. And Alec Guinness wanted to make Nicholson a little bit less intense and a bit more sympathetic, and that was vetoed. So that's good.
Lean was getting his own way. I think Alec Guinness was mostly known as a slightly lighter, like more comedic actor at the time.
I think that's fantastic. The conflict between them means that they just, in these movies where everyone just thinks the same way or no one gets challenged, they just go with bad ideas.
Yeah.
So definitely when there's challenging people, willing to challenge each other, that's that culture of safety in the direction and the making of the movie.
Yep.
Even if they had heated arguments, it makes the movie better. It means that people will think twice about something, and you can see there were some changes and some not changes, but either way, the ability to speak up and have those arguments, I'm sure, made this a better movie.
They did shoot the film in Ceylon because the actual River Kwai had slowed to a trickle when they wanted to shoot it. So maybe they could have shot that very last scene there where there's no water and they're tracking down the line.
That's interesting. So they shot the film in Ceylon. I mean, it was at least not in a Hollywood lot, right? It was on some kind of convincing location.
Yep. And the bridge itself took apparently 8 months to build, and the team that built it consisted of 500 men and 35 elephants.
So this is the fake movie bridge.
The fake movie bridge.
And
took longer to build than the bridge in the movie.
I bet they mistreated the builders and repeated history there.
Oh, certainly. And then, of course, after they built the bridge, what did they do?
Did they blow it up? They
had to
really blew it up.
Yeah, because they had to get the footage for the final scene. So they blew it up. They obviously only had one take to blow it up and get the footage of it. So they got that, and then as they were sending the film back, there was some kind of delays due to some crisis. Things were being sent in unusual ways, and the final footage of the final scene went missing. And they eventually found it in Cairo, sitting on a tarmac for a week. And they thought, oh God, it's going to be completely ruined. But the film somehow survived and was able to be inserted into the film.
I think the story of the making of the movie is almost as interesting as the movie, right?
You could definitely do a making of it, yeah.
Fantastic.
And the final bit of kind of chaos in the making of the movie was that Spiegel wanted to release the movie in time to qualify for the Oscars and avoid going up against Vertigo the following year, I guess. So composer Malcolm Arnold was forced to write and record the score in just 10 days. But he still won an Oscar and a Grammy for it. So
incredible.
Good work. And it all worked. The happy ending to the story was that the movie was a massive box office success as well as a critical one.
And it would have had the audience of everyone who'd read the book, as well as just being a war movie at a time when people were probably ready to watch it. So I think that's fantastic as well. And it really was a serious movie, but it had some funny moments. So I think it had a really nice balance of a little bit of humour and quite a lot of drama.
Yeah.
Almost a perfect balance of that.
Yeah. I think I said before that the movie was made in 1958. It was, in fact, I was confusing that with Vertigo because I'm so used to comparing movies with the same year. It was, in fact, made in 1957, as we established earlier.
Yes.
So what were some of the good lines from the movie?
Colonel Saito had quite a few good lines. The interaction between Nicholson and Saito. Do not speak to me of rules. This is war. This is not a game of cricket.
Yes. And of course, we, as cricket fans, we should point out they're not rules, they're laws in cricket. The laws of cricket.
Might be the laws of war or
Could
the
be
rules
the laws of war.
And Saito apparently had been educated in England, and that was established when they had some civilised drink together.
Yes.
Nicholson and Saito, because they were fellow officers, and
they were
both of them above the chaff of below them.
Yes. There was also Saito had one question. He said, "One question, can you finish the bridge on time?" And Nicholson said, "Frankly, the consensus of opinion is that it's impossible, but we'll certainly give it a go. After all, we mustn't forget that we've wasted over a month through an unfortunate disagreement for which I was not to blame."
Fantastic bit of script work there. And another moment, Joyce says to Shears, "I'm sorry, sir, I thought you were the enemy." And Shears replies, "Well, I'm an American if that's what you mean."
Yeah, so once they actually got to Ceylon, things they kind of cranked up the comedy for a little bit there.
Yeah.
While they're actually out of the war zone, there were a few gags thrown in there.
Yeah, Ceylon was definitely some physical humour as well, I think. Particularly, the nurse that he was shagging then walked past and she turned out to be an officer that everyone thought was someone important.
Yeah, and they had commandos training and they would just leap on one another and attack them, and one of them accidentally attacked Shears and he wrestled him to the ground, and then there were, comedic apologies. Oh, sorry, I didn't recognise you.
And the whole routine where Shears was invited to go on the sabotage was also a comedy routine because they're there in Ceylon trying to grab people for this particular sabotage mission, and he really didn't have a choice, and they knew his entire history and the fact that he was impersonating an officer as well.
Yeah, and eventually, of course, they say, well, we're just going to parachute you in and you can get to work on this expedition. And then he says, well, I've never jumped out of a plane before. And that's when we get the final quote here, which is Warden comes back and says, if you make one jump, you've only got 50% chance of injury, 2 jumps, 80%, and 3 jumps, you're bound to catch a packet. The consensus of opinion is that the most sensible thing for Major Shears to do is to go ahead and jump and hope for the best. And Shears says, with or without a parachute. So it was good. Had some good lines in there.
Yeah, and Shears did have some really good lines. But of course, we can go quickly through the Bechdel test. Does it pass?
No.
No, definitely not. The women were not named, and they couldn't even speak in English, most of them, and they certainly didn't talk to each other. So not surprising for a war movie of that era.
No.
So technology, though, if we had modern technology, how would it improve the plot?
Well, it is always hard to change something tied
It's historical.
so
yeah.
historical to the war. But I mean, these days they just send in some drones to blow up the bridge. Surely, either that, or they could, build some kind of thermal exhaust port into the bridge that even a Tatooine farm boy could hit, causing a chain reaction that would blow the whole thing up. So there are other options there.
That would be perfect. It may be a little harder in modern times for Shears to steal someone's identity, but if he had done that, he would have done that through some kind of identity fraud phishing attempt, presumably,
Yes.
rather than
Wouldn't
just
have
grabbing the dog tags.
Yes.
Yeah.
There were a couple of tributes and homages and remakes to this. So shortly after this movie came out, Spike Milligan and Peter Sellers of The Goon Show released a LP record, Bridge on the River Kwai. So that was a parody of it, presumably.
Yeah.
And of course, we have the famous whistled music, which is predated the movie. It was the Colonel Bogey March, but most people know it as the song about Hitler only having one ball, don't they?
You may know this.
You've never heard of that?
No, I've never heard the words of it.
No, haven't you?
No, you might have to put the words into the show notes.
I will put this. It was a famous that was kind of a sneaky joke of the movie that's what the people in the war used to sing to that particular tune.
So they didn't sing it in this case; they whistled it.
They whistled it, but that was
for it not to be too distasteful.
Exactly,
but
yes.
That's why it was an anthem of the era. All right,
So
we've got some Oscar. A whole bunch of Oscar movies we've reluctantly watched. We've got a lot of war stuff going on. So can we link these in the Oscar cinematic universe?
I'd like to think that Shears had a flight booked for Casablanca. He was
okay.
just about to fly off to Casablanca, and then they said, "Nah, you've got to go on this return mission." So that's my link to the Oscar movie cinematic universe.
Yeah, that's great. I think that's perfect. And now we are going through the Hitchcock movie checklist as well. And one of the most delightful things about this movie, according to our checklist, is it has a MacGuffin. It has a fantastic MacGuffin.
It has a titular MacGuffin.
Yeah.
The actual bridge itself is the most MacGuffin-y of all MacGuffins.
That's right.
They could have been building and blowing up anything.
Yep.
It just happens to be a bridge. So
Fantastic.
Yeah, very good. Proper MacGuffin, that one.
Yeah, classic.
What about a cameo? Where could Lean have hidden himself?
I like to think that he might have been a casualty in the hospital because, he could have had his head bandaged with only one eye showing or something like that. Or maybe one of the whistling masses early on.
I think he might have been one of the officers standing in the sun early on.
Yeah.
But I did quite enjoy that Nicholson spoke for all these other officers and said, these men aren't going to go to work. So instead they were tortured and put in this rank.
Yeah.
They might have gone, actually wouldn't mind just going out and jumping off this half-made bridge and just swimming in the river, which is what all the enlisted men were doing.
Yeah, they probably would have chosen a bit differently. So he didn't even treat his officers very well either. Yeah, and they were going to get shot at one point.
Yep.
We had a lot of birds and animals as well. There were vultures circling Shears, weren't there?
Yeah, and I did particularly like the scene as the vultures were kind of about to swoop in on Shears. We got a close-up of one of the vultures, and it was the most terrible special effect I'd ever seen. It looked like just someone had put a terrible coloured painted kite there, and that's exactly what Lean pulled back to reveal it was. It was a kite from a small village.
Yeah, that
boy.
was a good moment.
It was. I was like, oh God, this is terrible special effects. Come on, catch up. Hitch is going to show you how to do birds in special effects.
Yep.
But no, that was
it
very
was
funny.
just a joke.
Yeah.
So that was good. We had our lead character pretty much at a standstill. Nicholson was stuck there. He was literally locked in a box for the start, and then and he had a little bit more freedom, but they were stuck in a POW camp. He was a prisoner of war, so he was at a standstill there.
But we also had Shears on the run. So Shears escapes, and so he's on the run, but he doesn't get too far either because he ends all the way back where he started as well. So, yeah, it's good.
That's right. And fantastic characters with shades of grey. So a lot of characters with elements of good and bad. Nicholson, of course, we're supposed to see him as a stoic defender of the Geneva Convention, a war hero, but he's very badly flawed under all of that.
Flawed. He's great.
And then Saito, again, not just a classic cartoon bad guy. He had some good moments as well.
As we mentioned, this was so recent to the war. They would have been so used to just Japanese or Germans or whoever being just treated as propaganda. Like they would have been cartoon villains.
And usually idiots as well.
And so this was great. We do have a bit of mistaken identity as well, deliberately mistaken. She is as pretending to be an officer. Again, as we mentioned, that's a plot point that doesn't go particularly anywhere, but interesting.
It's
piece
really
of plot
only there to attest to his character. What other tropes have you got
there? So courtesy of TV tropes, we had the classic, as mentioned, circling vultures, which is a classic trope. We had a bit of contemplating our navels. So this is just before the bridge is open. Nicholson has a deep and meaningful discussion. He says, "Oh, what has my life been all about?" So a bit of pondering, bit of contemplating of his navels. We've got fascist but inefficient. So this is the trope where Saito is in control, but he doesn't know how to build a bridge. He needs the proper British intelligence to teach him how to do that.
They made a big thing about how they didn't have a proper engineer.
Yes. Last name basis was another trope. None of the characters' first names are ever even mentioned.
That's fantastic.
You don't know anybody's first name.
That is so good.
Yep.
Everyone's just on a last name basis. That's great.
We also have a classic, "My God, what have I done?" which is, I think it's almost literally what he says at the end. Colonel Nicholson just about comes to his senses. Do you think he came to his senses at the end? Do you think he actually meant to detonate the bridge, or whether he was still torn and just happened to fall on it?
He was moving towards the bridge to detonate it, and then he fell on it.
Yeah, that's what I think too.
I think he was. He seemed to come to his senses, as you say, that he did that "my God, what have I done" kind of moment.
Yeah. We've got the plunger detonator, classic.
It was a classic Roadrunner style.
It was, yeah.
Plunger.
Yep.
It's fantastic.
The Pyrrhic victory. So the bridge is destroyed, but we're pretty much back. Nobody's gained anything. There wasn't a bridge there. There's no bridge there at the end, just a lot of dead people.
Yeah.
The stiff upper lip, classic. And, of course, what a senseless waste of human life, which is pretty much the doctor right at the end just going, this is madness. What have we done?
Yep.
So, Vertigo. What could Vertigo? Vertigo would have had a chance to see Bridge on the River Kwai. Hitchcock would have said, "All right, that's what won last year. How do I steal some Oscar juice from Bridge on the River Kwai to make Vertigo a winner?" And what should Hitch have learnt? What should he have done?
I guess he needed to set the entire thing in wartime.
Yes,
perhaps.
Yes.
We know he had form on that. He did some propaganda movies, so I think maybe setting the whole thing in wartime. It could have been half in Thailand and half in Ceylon after getting Scotty the first time. After Judy was escaping, maybe she could have escaped in much the same way that Shears did.
Yeah. I think we just needed to see a much longer battle of wills between Scotty and Judy. Scotty maybe just locked in a punishment hunt for a few days, teach him a lesson. As you mentioned, maybe Judy escaped to Ceylon after getting away from Scotty the first time, and then she has to be sent back to blow up his life again.
More whistling.
More whistling, yes. The score should have been replaced by lots of whistling. Or alternatively, maybe Scotty should have been in charge of building the bell tower.
Yes.
Maybe he should have gone, all right, I'll build this, and eventually gone up the top. But I think it's a pretty tight battle between these two movies. I really enjoy both of them. So, I'm not quite sure. I'd probably still lean slightly towards Vertigo, but if so, only just. They're both really good.
They're both really strong. That's right.
Vertigo would have destroyed Gigi, though. Even without seeing Gigi, I know Vertigo's a better movie.
Yeah, much better.
Yes.
Anyway, we're up to the rankings, right?
Yeah, so where are you going to rank Bridge on the River Kwai among the list of, what are we up to? Is this our 15th movie?
15 movies. So right at the top of my list is Casablanca, right at the bottom, Tom Jones.
Yes.
So that's in keeping with my, love of war movies. There, I've got Casablanca at the top, but I have got Gaslight number 2, Rebecca number 3, and I love Rebecca, and Bridge on the River Kwai number 4.
Number 4 moves into number 4. Well, I have The Godfather as my number 1 and Casablanca number 2. I'm going to slot Bridge on the River Kwai into number 2.
Into number 2 above Casablanca.
Sorry, Casablanca.
Wow, just under The Godfather, and Dan loves The Godfather.
I do love The Godfather.
So this is an excellent movie. If you take our word for it, you should definitely go and see it. I mean, I must say, it's not up against really stiff competition in this list of 15.
No.
Literally everything below about number 5 or 6, I would happily blow them up so no one ever has to watch them ever again.
Yeah, I think 6 out of the 15 I can tolerate as well. So yeah. What about our next movie? So we did give the cryptic clue earlier. What was the cryptic clue again?
It was newborn tot. Try dealing with this film, 529. And this is an anagram. And the answer is North by Northwest. So how do we build that one up, Dan?
So dealing with is our anagram indicator. And basically, if you arrange newborn tot try, you get North by Northwest. And so that's what we're doing next time. We're going to rewatch North by Northwest.
And this indeed is 1959.
Yes.
Originally, Dan, you ranked this number 6 in your list, and I have always had this as my number 1, not just amongst Hitchcock movies, but my number 1 amongst all movies. Very doubtful it'll get knocked off the perch there.
Yeah, well, it might move up for me. It might move down.
Could move up, could move down.
This will not be my first rewatch, though. I have seen this one. This is probably the Hitchcock movie I've watched most now.
Well, we did see it at the cinema,
Yeah,
right?
we went to see this at the cinema not long ago. So, yeah. But nevertheless, we'll watch it again and we will offer our thoughts on it next
I am
month.
always happy. I've seen it about 10,
Yeah.
maybe 20 times, and
Yep.
I always love the rewatch. So we'll speak to you next month. Thank you for listening to HitchPod. Please come and talk to us on
Blue Sky
at
hitchpodonline.com.
or on Facebook by searching for HitchPod. And you can also email us directly at feedback@hitchpodonline.com. And if you want more Hitchcock content, please consider becoming a HitchPod supporter. Just go to patreon.com/HitchPod. And for as little as $2 a month, you can get access to our Season 1 coverage of every single Hitchcock movie, as well as bonus episodes on Hitchcock-esque movies. Invitations also to watch live rewatches and much, much more.